I have an intense craving for chocolate cake. But here I am, stuck in bed feeling miserable. Suddenly, my mother-in-law, Grace, starts yelling at me to fetch her a cake immediately. I reached my breaking point and snapped back at her, telling her to get her own cake since I only have a month left to live. My name is Olivia, and I'm 28 years old. I met my husband, David, through a mutual friend, and after 3 years of dating, we tied the knot. We don't have children yet, but we're enjoying our life together. David's family owns a small factory with around 30 employees, and it's doing quite well in the region. The business was started by David's late father and has thrived thanks to everyone's efforts. Now, David's sister, Sophia, manages the company. She's single but excels at running the business, which David attributes to their mother's excellent communication skills. Sophia is genuinely kind and easy to chat with. From the moment we met, my sister-in-law warmly welcomed me, calling me adorable and expressing her happiness about having me in the family. Having grown up with only brothers, it was refreshing to gain a sister. However, despite this positive start, there's a significant issue with my mother-in-law. Our family holds coffee breaks at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. Times I dread. Here's the catch: whenever I'm asked to fetch mom's coffee, it completely ruins my mood. Our home is adjacent to the factory, and after my father-in-law passed away, my mother-in-law chose to retire and stay home. She seems to eagerly anticipate these coffee breaks, always greeting me with, "I've been waiting for you, Olivia." I once tried to speak with Sophia about my situation, but she looked disappointed. Understandably, she wasn't in a good mood and, before leaving with a forced smile, she said, "Hey, I need to talk to you, so sit down." Then she complained to me until the break was over. She often questions why we haven't had kids yet, as if it's something we can control. If I don't respond, she grows even more frustrated. "Why the long face? I wonder why David chose you. And your parents, who knows how long you'll last. The sooner, the better," she said with a sigh. Hearing her say such things, especially about my parents, is deeply painful. There's a reason for that. When David and I decided to marry and I first met his family, this is what happened. "What? You don't have parents?" My mother-in-law looked shocked when I told her. "It's not that I never had parents. My mother passed away from cancer when I was 10, and my father died of a heart attack when I was 20. My memories of my mom are hazy, but my dad raised my brother and me all on his own. I deeply regret that he passed before I could repay him for his kindness." When people learn about my situation, they often look at me with pity, saying, "You must have had a tough time." But my mother-in-law's response was different. "So, you might not live long either, huh?" she actually said. I was taken aback by her response. It was incredibly rude and thoughtless. David told me that even after my shock, my mother-in-law continued to complain, insisting it was a crucial issue. Should I reconsider this marriage? Just as I was contemplating that, Sophia, who had been silent until then, suddenly slammed her hand on the table and said, "What are you saying?" She spoke so quietly that everyone froze. Then my mother-in-law said, "Right, Sophia, you agree with me, don't you?" Sophia's reply was icy. "What? I told Mom that David chose Olivia himself, and she's wonderful. Why can't you support that?" She shot this at my mother-in-law with a cold stare. My mother-in-law, who typically doted on Sophia, seemed stunned by her words. After that, she stopped making hurtful comments, except when we were alone. Even during coffee breaks, she looked let down when I brought her coffee instead of Sophia's. Fortunately, David and I rented a room close to his family's house, so I only had to tolerate her complaints during those 10-minute coffee breaks. I'm grateful we don't live together, but my peace was suddenly disrupted. That year, an unprecedented hurricane brought a slew of misfortunes my way. "Olivia, something terrible has happened." I'd never heard David sound so frantic. I rushed to the living room, only to find it in disarray. "What's going on?" Our ceiling was leaking badly because of the hurricane. It wasn't just our room. The landlord informed us that it was affecting other rooms as well. It seemed unfeasible to stay there, so we needed to find alternative accommodation. Sophia cheerfully suggested, "Why worry, just stay with us. Your commute will be just 30 seconds. She said this so innocently that we ended up moving in with David's family for a while. Welcome home, David. It must have been tough, but Mom is thrilled that we can all live together again." My mother-in-law greeted us warmly, but David mostly ignored her, acting like a rebellious teen. Then she added, "Oh, Olivia, you're here too. I didn't notice, because you're so quiet." Smile. My husband looked frustrated, and all I could do was force a smile, realizing we'd be staying for a while. Once we moved in, I noticed something peculiar. The first time was during dinner on our first night. Wanting to express my gratitude, I prepared bread soup and steak. It wasn't gourmet, but my mother-in-law and sister-in-law both declared it delicious and polished off their plates. I felt genuinely relieved. After some time, my mother-in-law suddenly got up, humming a tune, and retrieved a container from the fridge. She opened it and dumped a mountain of its contents onto her steak. "Mom, you're still eating that stuff?" My husband, sitting beside me, looked disgusted. Sophia rolled her eyes and said, "She won't stop no matter how many times I tell her. I've given up." Then she burst into laughter. At first, I couldn't identify what she had piled on top of the steak, but upon closer inspection, I came to the shocking realization that it was jam. While it's not unusual to pair sweet sauces with meat, slathering jam on a seasoned steak struck me as odd. You often crave something sweet after something salty, right? That's what she seemed to think, looking quite pleased with herself. Honestly, just watching her made my stomach churn. For the record, I'm not fond of sweet sauces on meat. "Come on, Olivia, why not give it a try? It's absolutely delicious," my mother-in-law said, finally turning to me. I had no desire to eat it, but I managed a forced smile. Apparently, that wasn't the reaction she expected. "I'm recommending it for a reason. You might live longer if you follow my lead." With that parting remark, she retreated to her room, leaving me utterly speechless. My husband and sister-in-law offered their apologies, saying, Sorry, Mom's at it again with her nonsense. It seems my mother-in-law has quite the sweet tooth and believes her day isn't complete without cake." Strangely enough, her annual health checkups always yield good results. I recalled that she always indulges in cake during our afternoon coffee breaks. I also enjoy cake, but having it daily would become monotonous. Plus, what about blood sugar levels? I've always prioritized my health, especially since my parents didn't live long. So, the sight of my mother-in-law's jam-covered steak was quite a surprise. "Wait, does Sophia buy cake every day?" I asked, feeling taken aback. Sophia replied, "Yeah, she makes me go get it. She says it's embarrassing for her to do it herself. Because of that, I've become friends with all the local bakeries." She chuckled. My husband, David, chimed in, "Sophia, this isn't a laughing matter. Mom is getting older. She needs to take her health seriously." "I've always let Sophia handle Mom, and I feel guilty about it," David admitted, his frustration evident. "Well, I think you both need to pitch in more from now on," Sophia said cheerfully, and I steeled myself for more interactions with my mother-in-law. Living with my in-laws cut down my commute significantly, so I took the initiative to handle household chores before and after work. I attempted to strike up conversations with my mother-in-law, but she often ignored me or gave me the cold shoulder. Still, she never missed an opportunity to vent about the kids during our coffee breaks. Since moving in, my days had become increasingly difficult. It was probably the stress. My husband noticed my low spirits and offered to accompany me to the doctor several times. "Let's move out and stay at a hotel for a bit," he suggested, but I declined, thinking it would be a waste of money, especially since the nearest hotel was a bit of a trek. Then came the worst news, a week-long business trip. I was stunned when my husband revealed the reason for my dread. Sophia, my sister-in-law, would be going too, which meant I'd be alone with my mother-in-law. "Yeah," I replied. My husband offered to take me with him, but I thought, it's just a week, I hope I can handle it, especially since I wasn't feeling well. On the day they left, Sophia sent me a mother-in-law survival guide to my phone. "If anything goes wrong, just give her cake, and you'll be fine." I couldn't help but chuckle. The guide included local bakeries and my mother-in-law's favorite cakes from each. For someone like me bracing for a challenging week, this information was invaluable. In a week, our home renovations would be completed, and we could move back. I optimistically thought I could handle this, but that hope dwindled on the first night. When I returned from work, my mother-in-law was blocking my entrance. "You know why I'm upset, don't you?" she snapped. "No, I don't. I'm not a mind reader," I replied, losing my patience. "You missed both the 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. coffee breaks today." Her accusation caught me off guard. With my husband and Sophia away and the end-of-month tasks piling up, I had completely forgotten about my mother-in-law's coffee breaks. I never even took a coffee break myself. I thought she'd understand since she used to work, but the moment we were alone, she yelled at me. "You started this harassment, you wicked woman," she shouted, her expression furious. I felt a huge disconnect. Why was I being yelled at like this? Did I really deserve to be called wicked? Suppressing my anger, I thought, just a few more days, and said, I did buy cake during my lunch break. It's in the office fridge. Sorry I didn't bring it home. Her expression shifted from anger to a bright smile. Let's forget about today. Don't forget tomorrow, okay? She said cheerfully and retreated to her room. From that moment on, I made sure never to forget the coffee breaks, fully aware of the trouble I'd face if I upset my mother-in-law. On the day my husband and Sophia were set to return, I felt incredibly anxious. Nausea, headaches, and a lack of appetite overwhelmed me. I took the day off and went to the hospital. It's pretty serious. Can your family come right away? I couldn't stop crying at the doctor's words. I was diagnosed with cancer and given a prognosis of at most 6 months, perhaps even just 1 month, to live. I returned home, my face streaked with tears, my body shaking, and collapsed onto the bed. The door burst open. What are you doing skipping work? Sophia and David are working hard, and you're slacking off. Her yelling only worsened my headache. I didn't have the energy to respond, so I simply said, I'm not feeling well, and closed my eyes. My mother-in-law seemed indifferent. She refused to leave the room and continued complaining to me. She said things like, that's why you can't have children, and who knows if you'll even live long. I remained silent, pretending to be asleep. Then suddenly, she asked about today's coffee break. Is she really this insensitive? I thought, opening my eyes to see her hovering over me. Grace, I'm sorry, I'm too unwell to go shopping today. Could you please? She interrupted me. I don't care. I want chocolate cake right now. Go buy it. You're probably just pretending, she screamed, her voice rising. My frustration exploded at the woman before me, who was behaving selfishly like a child. Shut up. Listen to me. I have 1 month to live. Go buy your own damn cake. You idiot. My words seemed to stun my mother-in-law, who stared at me, wide-eyed. Then, from behind her, Mom, what's going on? And Olivia, what do you mean by 1 month? My husband looked pale, and my sister-in-law wore a concerned expression as they stood there. Oh, weren't you supposed to come back tomorrow? Ignoring the visibly shaken mother-in-law, my husband came to my side. I felt such relief at his action that I burst into tears. I've reached my breaking point. The doctor suspects cancer, and I'm feeling unwell, yet you keep pestering me to go out and buy cake. This has to stop, and stop bringing up the kids. Just leave me alone, you fool. I unleashed all my pent-up frustration on my mother-in-law while tears streamed down my face. My husband and sister-in-law glared at her, incredulous. How could she send a sick person out for cake? Is she serious? Sophia, who's usually all smiles, wore a terrifying expression I had never seen before. You've been making sarcastic comments about the kids. I've kept quiet because it's a sensitive topic, but the reason we can't have children is me. My husband raised his voice as he spoke. About a year after we got married, we sought medical help due to our struggles with conception. The tests indicated I was fine, but my husband had low sperm count. He felt devastated and constantly apologized, wearing a sorrowful expression. I didn't want him to feel guilty, so I tried to avoid the subject of children. Although I desired kids, I believed life with just him was enough. Leaving him over this wasn't an option. I didn't tell my mother-in-law because I knew she'd just nag me about it. She absorbed my husband's words, looking as if her soul had been drained. Just then, my phone rang. The caller ID indicated it was the hospital. Hello? Yes, we'll come right away. My husband just got home? Okay, understood. The urgency in the doctor's voice made my heart race. Am I really that sick? Anxiety overwhelmed me, and I began to cry. It's going to be okay, Olivia. Can you stand? I'm here with you, my husband said, his own eyes brimming with tears. We rushed to the hospital. As we left, I caught sight of my mother-in-law getting a stern talking to from Sophia. Upon our arrival at the hospital, we were promptly taken to a room where the doctor and the hospital director awaited us, both looking exhausted and apologetic. It turned out to be a misdiagnosis. They had confused my medical records with another patient who had the same name and birth date. I was in shock that such a mix-up could happen. The doctor looked completely drained. This incident eventually made headlines locally, prompting the hospital to promise a review of their protocols. We were then referred to another facility. When we returned to my in-laws' home, my mother-in-law appeared chastened by Sophia, almost shrinking in her seat. Sophia later confided in me that she was worried about her newlywed brother losing his wife and suffering heartache. It might have been a twisted kind of love, but witnessing tear-streaked faces was exhausting. Even my mother-in-law broke down. Did I really do something so terrible? She sobbed. And what about Olivia? Sophia asked. concern etched on her face. "I'm pregnant," I announced, tears of joy filling my eyes. My husband stood beside me, equally emotional. We promptly went to the maternity hospital as recommended. "It's still early, but yes, you're pregnant. We can confirm the heartbeat." Those words sent us both into a tearful frenzy. Even in the hospital, Sophia joined in, exclaiming, "I'm so happy, truly." As for what followed, Sophia got engaged to her long-term boyfriend and relocated to another state after resigning from her job. We had been prepared for this news, so it didn't catch us off guard. Meanwhile, my husband was busy transitioning into the new CEO role, dealing with client meetings. The business trip he mentioned earlier was related to this. He later told me he was able to come home a day early because the trip wrapped up sooner than anticipated. My mother-in-law seemed unaware of these developments: marriage, a job change, a move to another state. She looked stunned when Sophia told her, "Yeah, I mentioned it, remember?" "Honestly, it doesn't matter. It's done now." My mother-in-law appeared dazed, and we all shared a laugh. Returning home, we found the leaking roof repaired and our room looking refreshed. We cheered in delight. Tensions with my mother-in-law still lingered. My husband was angrier than I was, insisting he never wanted to see her again. Yet she started making occasional appearances during our coffee breaks, bringing not cake but little snacks like biscuits. It seemed she had ditched the daily cakes and jam-covered steaks, now trying to be more health-conscious with a grandchild on the way. Employees who had been around since my father-in-law's tenure as CEO were happy to see her, leading me to realize she wasn't inherently a bad person. Our conversations increased over time, and she stopped her complaints. When our daughter, Emma, was born, my mother-in-law underwent a transformation. She began doing things like buying diapers and leaving prepared side dishes for dinner, saying, "Please eat, you're always working so hard." Even when she knew I was home, she'd send a message and leave without ringing the doorbell, placing the side dishes in a cooler. I appreciated her thoughtfulness. I felt like I could connect with this new version of my mother-in-law. What truly convinced me was when Emma was born, and she took my hand, saying, "Thank you, Olivia, I mean it, thank you." Her tears showed me her sincerity. Sophia seems to be thriving as well, recently announcing her own pregnancy. It looks like it won't be long before we all gather at the in-laws' house for a friendly meal. Thanks for watching. See you again in the next video. Stay stunned.